Hi friends, today I want to read to you one of my favorite holiday stories. It's called The Polar Express. You might notice that my book is kind of old and ripped a little bit. It doesn't look like it's in that great a shape. I've got some tape on it. Well, that's because this book is from when I was little. I've had it such a long time and I got it from my grandparents and they even wrote in the book for me. And guess what? This year, this book turns 30 years old. So I've had this book for 30 years from my grandparents. So it's super special, and I want to share it with you. You may have heard this story before. Maybe you've seen the movie. It's called The Polar Express. It's about a train that takes a trip to the North Pole. The Polar Express. Here we go. Good. There we go. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I would never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. Can you imagine if you looked out your window and there was a train right outside your house? That would be crazy. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Steam comes out of the train. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. You can kind of see him right there. See him? Looking at the little boy. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. All aboard! The conductor cried out. I ran up to him. Well, he said, are you coming? Where? I asked. Why, to the North Pole, of course, was his answer. This is the Polar Express. I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. Wow. Look at the train standing right in the middle of the street. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Oh my gosh, that sounds delicious. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. So it's headed up. Soon there were more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. Can you see the train right here? Look, headed up the mountain. Come closer. Oh my goodness, what a ride. The mountains turned to hills, the hills to covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. So then they see these lights far away. They think they look like a big giant boat in a faraway ocean. There, said the conductor, is the North Pole. Oh my goodness. Almost there. The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. They are gathering at the center of the city, the conductor told us. That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas. Who receives the first gift? We all asked. The conductor answered, he will choose one of you. Oh my gosh. Look at the North Pole. What a beautiful place. Look, shouted one of the children, the elves. I don't know if you guys can see right here, but every little red spot you see here is an elf. They're all gathering together. They're ready for Christmas Eve. Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. So many elves crowding the streets. Oh my goodness. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor led us outside. Look who we see here. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound, like nothing I had ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and pointing to me, he said, let's have this fellow here. He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked me, now what would you like for Christmas? Gosh, this is so exciting. Oh my gosh, I wonder what he's going to ask for. I knew I could have any gift I could imagine. But the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from the reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, the first gift of Christmas! Oh my gosh, look at that. A clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. That means they're all clapping and cheering. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted the reindeer's names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared into the dark polar sky. He's off to deliver the toys. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, and the only thing I felt was a hole. He had a hole in his pocket. The bell must have fallen out. Oh no. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. Let's hurry outside and look for it, one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. Oh no, that's terrible. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. What? I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. Merry Christmas! He shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. There it goes. There they go. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was also a note. Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C. The C is for Claus, Mr. Santa Claus. I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I had shaken the bell, my parents could not hear a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe. So you can only hear the sound of that beautiful bell from Santa's sleigh if you truly believe in the magic of Christmas. So that little boy said he will remember and he will believe in the magic of Christmas for all of his life until he grew old. But some people did not always believe in that magic, so they couldn't hear the bell. I know I would hear the bell. Do you think you would hear the bell? I bet you would. Okay, that is the end of the Polar Express. See you soon, friends. Bye.